Welcome to the Wizard Tower Art Podcast. I'm your host, Cryomancer Lex. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and DeviantArt mainly. I also do have a Tumblr account, but you know how things are with Tumblr lately. Now that I have your attention, which I'm very thankful for, I just want to start by telling you who I am and why does this podcast exist. I mean, we're practically drowning in podcasts in 2019, so I am a computer engineer, an illustrator by trade. I love fantasy. English is not my native language, and so it might seem crazy for me to try to start a podcast, but I think it would be one of the best ways for me to practice, actually. And I do think my level of English is good enough to, at least maintain some level of civil discussion. So what is this podcast about? I'm going to be honest right off the bat. My style of presentation is going to be a bit off the cuff. I have a few pointers of the things I want to talk about, but to keep this real, organic, and in all honesty, easier for me to edit and present to you, I'm just going to pick my topics, talk about them, then have a bit of introspection about what they are, what they mean, and then I will just keep going until the time is done. I mean, that sounds very dry, but it gets the job done. Obviously, in later episodes, we can have interviews, we can have interaction with other artists, but this being a pilot, it's more of threading the water for me, putting my little pinky on the lake and see if the water's too cold. Hopefully not. I think if there's value in what I'm saying, hopefully you'll stay, hopefully you'll tell other people, but, I have to put the work in, so let's get to it. So for this first episode, or episode 0, I guess, I want to talk about Twitter because, mainly because that's where my main following is, and I have a bit more of an idea of what the ecosystem is. Everybody who interacts with Twitter on a daily basis should stop. We all agree that it's bad, but we keep doing it. It's kind of like alcohol, I guess, but, I don't want to get into a soapbox about social media. That's not the point. The point is, people like going on Twitter. They like the interaction, obviously. We're social creatures. But Twitter is too big for what people can handle psychologically. And I'm going to try to keep it to art. We may delve into other topics of this nature, but perhaps in another episode. The point I'm trying to raise here is that people like posting their art, and they like people reacting to it, obviously. They like people perhaps critiquing it without being just negative or needlessly mean, but you get the idea. And as time goes on and social media in general gets more saturated, people need to evolve and improve their techniques to get out there, right? And so one of the first things I wanted to talk about was art threads. Art threads have been going around for a while, especially on Twitter, but I've seen a bit of a resurgence last year, around October or November. I saw people making threads where they just share their portfolio or they share the latest work with all of their social media. I'm sure you've seen them if you frequent Twitter specifically. People were very excited and they did it, and a lot of people got a lot of followers out of it, I must admit, including me, full disclosure. I went from like 300 to 800, which is not that much, obviously, but comparatively, more than double. And I'm very grateful for that, and I really like that people do look at my stuff and do like it when I upload it, even if it's like a single like or retweet. But there is a problem here, and I think it's a problem not many artists are noticing, or they like to hear, and that is diminishing returns. So art threads were good. The very reason, this is my opinion, the reason why they worked so well in the beginning was precisely because they weren't being done very often. Now, perhaps it's just the people I follow. There's art threads every day. Sometimes I see the same username, and this is not about shaming, you'll see why. Sometimes I see the same username just doing the art thread thing or participating in it 10 times in 1 week. I'm sure that's a very small portion of the population, of the art community. But nevertheless, it leaves a mark on Twitter at large. And these are the same people who, in a way, inflate their follower count and then wonder, how come I have almost 1,000 followers sometimes, but there's no engagement? People don't reply to my art. People don't like it. And I think it has to do with those things. I mean, first of all, saturation again. People cannot see everybody's posts are fighting to be in someone's timeline. The more people you follow, the more people you share with, the more people you engage with. It's the same timeline with the same space. So you'd have to be scrolling down a lot to find everyone. And the second, well, this is kind of depreciating what a follower means. Kind of like currency, though perhaps there's a lot more nuance to that. And what I mean by this is, it doesn't matter that you have 1,000 or 2,000 followers if they're all either people who just pity clicked you, to be perfectly honest, or people who, perhaps they want to help you as an artist, but then they don't really like your stuff to organically like it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. We need to, as artists, we need to accept that not everybody will like our art. That's fine. But we need to be honest with ourselves and say, you know what, perhaps I shouldn't be striving to get that 100 or 200 extra followers if I'm not willing to be prepared to not get what I need from it. That's very rambly, I'm sorry, but hopefully you get my point. And so the solution to that, in my opinion, is to calm down for a bit. And I know it sounds weird, it sounds like sneaky. Some people might think that I'm saying that just so that other people do get the attention when they keep going, but I think this is very dangerous, because if we just keep making art threads over and over, people will stop caring. I mean, I do think they already care less, and I don't think that would be a reason for us to get angry. Even the most loyal friend and fan would get a bit upset. Imagine if you saw the same art over and over and over because that person wants to, share their portfolio. Yes, you respect the hustle. I do. I admire being out there and trying to push your work. But if you're getting diminishing returns and it's demonstrable, or at least there's a correlation there, why keep pushing it? So now that that hot opinion is out of the way, let's veer a bit into social media in general. Still focusing on Twitter, pretty much. I mean, that's what I know. I think there was a blackout a few days ago, and people were panicking. Some memes were made, as usual, which was personally, it was very funny to me, because people usually make fun of Facebook and Instagram when they go down on Twitter, but now the tables were turned, so that was fun. You need to realize that this made a lot of people wake up to the fact that they shouldn't put their eggs in one basket, all of them. And if you are currently in any social media platform and you have a disproportionate amount of followers compared to other ones, I mean, we're talking the usual suspects like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, DeviantArt, Pixiv, ArtStation. I'm not sure how they manage their following. If you have a disproportionate amount of followers in one place compared to the others, you need to start working on those other smaller sites, because not only would this help you get a bigger reach, but also what happens when an algorithm changes. I know YouTube is the prime example of this, but all social media platforms need to use machines to control their environment. And so what will happen when, by accident, you get banned or suspended or otherwise blocked? You need your social media platforms to engage with your fans, obviously, but also to push your merch, to increase your brand reach, to announce any discount you might have on Redbubble or Gumroad or, Society6 or what have you. And so you need to grow. You need to become basically a social media marketer, but also an artist in the same person. Because even though that sounds hard and it sounds like you're just dropping water into the ocean, paradoxically, this is also the best time for you to be your own marketer. Before the internet, people had to buy billboards. I mean, they're still going on, but I mean, I'm sure you've noticed that it's usually big, already established companies. When it comes to a local business, or in this case, you trying to shout out people or publish your art, it's free. And there's an organic growth akin to word of mouth that we had never seen before. It used to be that people would buy billboard spaces and or grab a spot on the radio or on TV. But now everybody has a streaming service. Cable companies are on a free fall. That's why they're hesitating and trying to get their own streaming service, which in my opinion will just cause more piracy, but I digress. And so the best thing you can do right now is to have a good, consistent flow of content, so that eventually some fan who is very big with 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers retweets your art or comments on it, or a YouTuber showcases it or uses it for one of their assets, and hopefully, credits or pays you. That goes without saying. But yeah, we need to try harder in general, and I mean it. Most of you, I've seen some people on Twitter, and I know whenever you start a point with I've seen people on Twitter, it loses its merit, because it's a very vocal minority, and there's always going to be that guy. I'm aware of that. But artists, specifically this demographic, I've seen small artists who are very disheartened because they post a thing and people don't engage with it, which to them means they don't like it, so they just stop posting, or they want to share some ideas or opinions, but they fear backlash. And believe me, we're gonna delve into cancel culture, but some other time. But yeah, even the most innocuous thing, the most fan art or original character, people post it, and then it gets no engagement, and for them that is a failure. And I understand why it's a failure. You want people to understand how much you love those characters, how much you love that piece that you made. But it is part of the process. You need to get used to the idea that you are among millions of people trying to do the exact same thing. You will never invent anything radically new, but that is okay. It is enough for you to, or it should be enough for you to create something that is unique to you. That is the result of combining and mixing all of the other people you admire, all of the artists whose art it inspires you, and perhaps you take a bit of their style with you. And every single art style that exists is an amalgamation of previous art styles. And there's nothing wrong with that. So what do I do, you might ask? I've heard this before. I've heard that I need engagement, that I need to persevere, blah blah blah. I've heard this story before. But what do I actually do? Like, literally. Where do I go? What do I click? Etc. The answer is, obviously I don't have all the objective truth. I've seen what works for me. I've seen what works for other people, and what will hopefully, make it into a tried and true method before things change. Everything changes and evolves. So we need to, first of all, the first rule you need to learn is that rules themselves will change and keep changing. So you need to look for what works right now, and then use it. Keep an eye out there for when it stops working, and change your strategy. Because if you don't, you're gonna get stale. Now, the instructions. You need to post more. I'm pretty sure 99% of people listening to this are not posting enough. Because the best way, technically, to get out there in social media is to post as often as possible. I know it might seem weird, because, for example, if you're an artist on Twitter, you want people to see your art but not your opinions, or you care more for their opinions about your art than your opinions. But the more people see your name, the more likely it is for them to click on your profile. And now they can see the art. If you fear people will have to scroll down a lot to get to your stuff, make a Twitter moment. Compile your best art. Make sure to put your website thing on Twitter properly on your bio. Let them know you have an Instagram, you have a DeviantArt, you have anything else going on. Make it your pinned tweet. Make some call to action. If you're not familiar in marketing terms, a call to action means make them realize that whatever you're offering is not going to be there forever. So always have some kind of sale or some kind of package going on where if people act now, they get some kind of benefit. And understand how much you need to charge. Now, this might be a controversial opinion. I don't agree with many people who just say, oh, don't lower your prices because you need to know how much you're worth. Because I've been there. I say, well, people tell me that my art should be more expensive, but if you do that, people stop buying art. You cannot cheat the market. You need to flow with it, not fight against it, because otherwise you're just not gonna sell anything. It doesn't matter that you want to charge 30% more for a drawing if you're selling no drawings. It makes no sense. So I'm not telling you to go out there and try to undercut everyone, obviously. What I'm telling you is perhaps you need to reevaluate how much your art is actually worth. And it hurts. It might hurt to see maybe my art is not worth to be paid for. But that is fine. Everybody whose art is quote-unquote worth money is that way because they put the effort in. Nobody's cheating here. Nobody was born knowing how to paint things. And it is a time where you need to be honest with yourself and say, do I want to explore an artistic art style that really means something to me and explore deep themes, or perhaps draw a specific ship or characters I love interacting with each other because that's what I like? Or do I want to increase my following? And I think the best thing you can do is have a mix of both, because if you go straight for your obscure niche but beloved topics and art style, and what I mean by making it harder with your art style, I mean having a very detailed art style that takes you forever, where you know for a fact that there's other people out there making bank on Patreon by drawing what you as an artist perceive to be very simple scribbles. And at that point you realize that they're not actually selling their skill. It's not like a draftsman attempting to sell their technical prowess. No. They're selling their brand. They're saying, I made this, me who you consider to be good. So you need to get into that mindset. You need to start posting consistently 2-3 times a week art. You need to share your opinions on things. If you fear that you have opinions that might make people angry, just don't post them. Post something silly. Try to ask them who their favorite characters are. If you feel like you don't care about the backlash, if you say something controversial, or if you feel like you rather have a more genuine but smaller fan base, go for it. Just be sure and be honest that this is what you want for your account. So there are no shortcuts. You cannot cheat in the sense of getting famous fast, because if you hold out hoping that somebody famous retweets you, you might just be stuck here for 5 years without any improvement. And that gets even worse if you plan to live off your art. Now, obviously, all of this advice has to do with people who want to increase their following because they want to eventually live off of it. If you're a hobbyist and you just like scribbling for fun, then obviously this advice is too draining for what you want to do. You'll end up hating it. But the best way you can do this, I know it is like a famous saying that if you work doing what you love, it's not work at all. But that's not the case, in my opinion. You still need to put on the focus and the energy and all the things you need. You need to pay the bills for electricity, for internet. You need to put in the effort to actually improving your art so that you're not in those people who post on progress threads and both drawings from 5 years ago and today, the latter drawing is worse or the same in regards to skill level. So you need to go, ideally, you need to stop this video right now, or audio rather, and go out there. Grab your calendar, grab your scheduling app, start actually writing down, I need to make a certain amount of drawings this week. And I need to make them good. Don't just put sketches out there, color them. Make a clean line art, make an animation. Include a character you really love and talk about something you really know about them. Use hashtags. Try to remember the hashtag etiquette that is out there. For example, on Instagram, you can just separate your pieces by 2 new lines and then plaster relevant hashtags to high heaven, like 20, 30, if you're capable of finding relevant ones. If you're on Twitter, however, anything more than 2 or maximum 3 hashtags will be seen as, in poor taste, and people will react negatively to it because it looks like marketing. And even though it is, if you also provide value and something that people really want to look at, then it doesn't matter. People will love it. People will share it for you. They will essentially become walking commercials for you in a sense. And that's okay. But you need to start as soon as you can if you want to, make it. Because the game is changing. It's always changing. And this whole social media stuff might end pretty abruptly, if you ask me, because of social issues around social media. You know how people have their eye on it, and how regulation is a big topic at the moment. And you need to hurry up. Now, this call to action, as you would call it, is not for you to get anxious or nervous or worry, because, again, since this is free, and your only investment here is time, the worst thing that can happen is that you don't make it, but that's not the end of the world. You're not losing followers just for not doing this. Obviously, if you abandon your account or you post very scarcely, that will happen, but that's always been a thing. I mean, ask yourself, would you follow someone who posts once a month? And when they do post, they just apologize about not posting often, but they just keep doing it? No, you just want someone who either just posts art and minds their own business, or that shares some interest with you, or has a comment about the way art works that catches your attention. Now, about the content itself, what do I draw? And I think the answer depends on if you want long-term benefit or short-term benefit. You've seen it. For example, I'm recording this on July 15th, 2019, and it's not very long since Pokemon announced their new trainers. Some gym leaders. One of them is like a karate girl, and the other one is like a spooky ghost kind of kid. And people love them because Game Freak has a long history of designing appealing characters. But you might not want to just draw a character of the month. Now, in my case, I hate doing that. I draw what I want. And I think it has hurt me when talking about follower count. But I just can't bring myself to draw the popular character of the month. But I've accepted that this means my following will grow slower, because people won't see me when relevant things happen. Sometimes it does happen, however, if the thing that is new and is popular is also something I do enjoy. I tend to draw it, but you need to be honest again. It's a recurring theme, rather, to be honest with yourself and what you want and what you want to achieve. If what you need is to have a long-term benefit to your art, you need to draw popular characters just so that you can get off the ground, so that when you actually draw things you care about, which are not necessarily popular at the moment, you have eyes on it, and people actually care. So all you need to do to get popular, in a sense, is to find the correct hashtags. Now, for example, specifically on Twitter, you have the Monday motivation, Monday thoughts, Tuesday motivation, Tuesday thoughts, blah blah blah. For each day of the week, that's immediately a small bump. But remember, 2 or 3 hashtags is your maximum, so only use them when there's nothing else to add in terms of hashtags to the art you're uploading or the tweets you're sending. Tweet about things that you care about. Tweet about your opinions. If you had a bad day at work, if you had a good day at work, if somebody said something to you that stuck with you, if you heard a joke, just post it. Post a story about it on Instagram. Post a tweet. Post anything. People are obsessed with getting the perfect post. They spend 20 minutes, perfecting it. I am going to edit this audio, and I'm probably going to spend way too long editing it, because I have a tendency to say, as a crutch very often, and so you won't hear it that much, but I'm sure I'll have to cut up like 10 of those. And sometimes it is worth it. You want to have a clean presentation. You don't want to have typos. You want to be clear and concise so people don't misconstrue what you want to say. But sometimes it doesn't really matter. You have seen it. Very, very popular tweets that have spelling mistakes or that are completely wrong, but people resonate with something that is passionate. So it doesn't really matter. Just post it. Just do it. 3, 4, 5 things. If you feel like you don't have the time, or you don't care enough, or it's too bothersome to be opening your app at specific times like a robot, get a queuing app like Buffer. I'm currently using Buffer, so what you do is you queue up a lot of posts or tweets or whatever, and then you decide at what times those get posted. Now, there's the pros and cons of doing this, obviously. The pro is that you can just come up with essentially platitudes or nice sayings or phrases or something that is more evergreen, and just put it there and wait for it to appear, so that you don't annoy your followers with a bunch of tweets and then abandon them for weeks. But the cons of that is that obviously, since you're queuing posts ahead of time, if something big happens, if news that are relevant to you or to something you have an opinion happens, then you won't be able to post. You have to do it manually. And so you need to balance that out as well. It's all about effort and doing the right things and being efficient about it, and understanding that not everybody will get famous. Now, I'm not saying everybody wants to get famous. Perhaps you think you'll be fine with just 3,000 followers. It's interesting. 3,000 followers to some people is like a dream, and for some people they already have 10 and they feel like 50 is the magic number. This might be just a psychological thing and just a carrot on a stick sort of mechanism that keeps us going. Is it bad? Is it good? I actually don't know. It's a nice conversation for another time. But yeah, you need to start. Preferably yesterday. Alternatively, now. Thank you for listening to this pilot episode of the Wizard Tower Art Podcast. I'm going to attempt to get episodes out on a weekly basis. That's the plan for now. But first I need to get some feedback in the form of you commenting on wherever I post this, maybe on YouTube, also on Twitter. Anything helps. I don't think SoundCloud is like necessary right now because I'm just testing what's going on. I don't even know if it costs to do that. I'll look into it. If you have any comments, any topics you'd like me to take a look at, you can always email me at wizardtowerartgroup@gmail.com. That is wizardtowerartgroup@gmail.com. I'll be sure to check it out, and I appreciate any form of feedback. My name is Cryomancer Lex, and I hope you had a good time listening to this. And I'll see you